This story is part of the Cardinal and Dove Family Faith series, a collection of quiet stories about faith lived daily. This is Family Faith, Christlike compassion. Margaret noticed her because she always did, not because she searched for sorrow, but because years of paying attention to people, to pauses, to prayer, had trained her to see what others missed. The woman sat alone 2 rows ahead, her coat folded neatly beside her. She sang softly, if at all, eyes resting on the hymnal, as though it steadied her. Margaret leaned toward James. "She's new." James nodded, "Yes." "She comes alone," Margaret said, "every week." James watched a moment longer. "Then we need to be careful," he said quietly. "Loneliness doesn't always want attention." Margaret understood. Compassion must never turn a person into a project. After the service, the sanctuary emptied into the fellowship hall. James lingered near the door, greeting people with quiet warmth, listening more than speaking. Margaret moved slowly, watching the woman reach for her gloves. "I could introduce myself," Margaret said. James nodded. "If it opens a door, not if it closes one." Margaret smiled faintly. "You always say that." "I've learned it the hard way." Margaret approached. "Good morning. I'm Margaret." The woman hesitated, then smiled. Eleanor Price." Nothing more was asked that day. Over the next few weeks, Eleanor's pattern became familiar. She arrived just before the service and left quickly afterward. When she stayed, it was only long enough to pour coffee, which she rarely drank. One morning, James saw her standing alone at a small table. Her coffee sat untouched. He walked over, not with an agenda, just a greeting. "Good morning," he said. "I'm James. I don't think we've properly met." "Eleanor." They stood quietly, watching people pass. James didn't rush the space. "It's good to have you with us," he said. Eleanor nodded. "I don't always stay long." "I've noticed," James replied gently. "Church mornings can be a lot." "They are." James didn't fill the silence. Finally, Eleanor spoke. "It depends on whether my neighbor can sit with my husband, Walter." James waited. "He had a stroke," she added, eyes lowered. "Walter can't speak anymore." After a moment, she said, "This is the only hour I'm not at home." James inclined his head. "I'm glad you're here when you can be." Eleanor exhaled, as if something had loosened. That afternoon, James spoke with the deacons, quietly, carefully. Not a plan to fix, but a way to care. A meal here, a ride there. No announcements, no lists. The following week, James knocked on Eleanor's door. "I wondered," he said gently, "if you'd like to go grocery shopping while I sit with Walter." Eleanor blinked. "You would do that?" "Yes," James said simply. He brought his Bible. He read Psalms aloud, slowly, his voice steady in the small room. Walter did not respond, but James read as if being heard still mattered. It became their pattern. Once a week, Eleanor ran errands without hurry. James sat, read scripture, and prayed quietly, not over, but with. Margaret joined in other ways, meals without explanation, notes written in careful handwriting, a chair saved, a hand squeezed in prayer. Scripture came often, not as instruction, but confirmation. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. Galatians 6:2. And later, James said quietly, "Do not neglect to do good and to share what you have, for such sacrifices are pleasing to God." Hebrews 13:16. Compassion wasn't a dramatic intervention. It was a faithful presence, wisely coordinated, quietly sustained. One evening, Eleanor said to Margaret, "I don't feel invisible here anymore." Margaret smiled. "You never were." Later, James said softly, "I'm glad we waited." Margaret nodded. Waiting made room for staying. Christlike mercy doesn't rush. It doesn't announce itself. It notices. It gathers others gently, and when the weight is heavy, it stays. If this story was meaningful to you, we invite you to like and subscribe so you can continue walking with us through the Family Faith series by the Cardinal and Dove. We're glad you're here.